Welcome to the For Evansville podcast. You're listening because you care about Evansville. You see what's beautiful about our city, but you also see real challenges, and you want to be part of the solution. But where do you start, and how do you make a lasting impact? That's where For Evansville comes in. Through storytelling, films, podcast episodes, and gatherings, we drive meaningful conversation about our city's needs and opportunities. We connect people, organizations, and the local church together, creating a community where collaboration leads to real change. And we believe that you are uniquely positioned to make a difference. So if you're ready to move from feeling overwhelmed and disconnected to feeling empowered within a collaborative community, you're in the right place. Don't just live in Evansville, be for Evansville.
Hello, welcome to the For Evansville podcast. We're continuing our series with Talent EVV's annual report that just came out. And this section of the report is called Thriving Workforce. And so today with me, I have BJ Watts, who's the Executive Director of OptIN. And we have Robin Woebkenberg, the Counselor in CTE Program Operations at OptIN, and Annie Hills, the Chief of Staff at Old National Bank. And so welcome. Thanks for being here today. We are talking today about something that's near and dear to For Evansville's heart, because we just came out with a report on cradle to career. And it's following kids from birth to making sure that they land in a job that is full wage and they can have, a thriving life. And so you guys are here because we're working through the thriving workforce and just increasing educational attainment in jobs and wage growth by investing in cradle to career. So you guys here, let's first, I introduced you as the Director of OptIN. What is OptIN?
OptIN is a program that works with predominantly most of our high schools, but when people ask me what it is that we do, we just try to create informed consumers with our students so that they understand what the opportunities are that exist for employment once they graduate.
Okay.
And what education or continued education is required for those jobs. We don't push students in any direction. We just want them to know, hey, here's what's out there. Let us try to help you figure out what you're good at, what you're passionate about, and how can we marry those two things into a career.
Okay. And this is through the EVSC?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Robin, what's your role?
So along with BJ, I go out and visit the high schools and work with those students. And of course, some occupations are going to require college straight away right out of high school. But there are plenty of others that can meet students at a different point. It doesn't mean that they won't eventually attend college. They may just enter the workforce at a different spot. They may be ready to enter the workforce at a different spot. And I'll use the example of healthcare. We have a lot of our students wanting to go into healthcare, but they don't realize that they can do an entry-level job in healthcare even before they graduate high school. They can actually work during high school as a part-time job, and that manager will help them see the other opportunities that are available at that workplace and really help show them, and at sometimes with tuition reimbursement. If they prove themselves to be a good employee, they can get some help paying for college, and they can get up to one step. Maybe it's a phlebotomist or a sterile processor, and then they can go up that next step and keep moving up until they get to their desired profession.
Hey, this is Pat. I remember feeling disillusioned about what I perceived to be a lack of collaboration among Christians in Evansville. 150 churches, 150 ministries type of thing. Then I discovered For Evansville, an organization that's devoted to bringing together Christians to address the city's most pressing issues, like kids growing up in poverty. And that's why I joined the For Evansville Collective, to be around more people like me who love Evansville. So be For Evansville and be part of the collective. You can learn more at forevansville.org/collective.
We just had an event called Imagine Evansville, and one of our guest speakers was Aaron Huff, and he's the principal at Bossy. And so he's very familiar with Toyota. They partnered with Bossy and doing a program there. But what struck me by his talk, and what I think people kind of came away with, is that education, the way we've done education, hasn't changed in a long time, but the workforce is changing almost daily, it seems like, with all the technology and innovation. So why is your job, or, like what you guys do, and just this employer education partnership, why are they so important for schools?
Well, when you can get an employer to interact with students, whether it be in our environment, which is the school, which is what 4T has done at Bosse. They have gone into Bosse High School, created this amazing space, given the students a lot of opportunity, and then take them up to see their space at Toyota. Or it's a program like Berry Link, where Berry has created a classroom inside one of their plants. And they take the students into their classroom, becomes the workplace. And you see that integration of Berry staff. The staff members know all of those students. And they're not hired at Berry yet. Their junior year, they're not employees of Berry. They're EVSC students.
Yeah.
But they're allowed to go in there. They're allowed to have a classroom. We're allowed to have a teacher. And those employees go in and out of that classroom and teach the students all of the different jobs that are available at Berry, from, hands-on technical jobs to human resources and all of the things in between, things that we don't even know exist, in the school place. And the students learn so much, and they start to learn what their aptitude is that they wouldn't even know if they were just in the regular classroom.
Well, that was going to be my next question, is why is it important to start? Maybe people think that this is so early to start them on this kind of path. Why do you think it's kind of changed to start earlier?
For me, I think it makes learning relevant. And I think that's the key to the student. They understand they're not learning geometry because we told them to, which has been what we've done in the past, but it is now becomes, this is why this is important. We had a student, Dr. Katie Jenner, was in visiting our Link program at Berry, and one of the students, she asked, do you enjoy this more than you enjoy traditional high school? And they said yes, because it's relevant. I go back to my home high school, I'm taking geometry and German, which isn't relevant to me. And actually the Berry employees interrupted them and said, wait, you use geometry every day in this facility, and we have plants all over Germany. So if you have that ability also, you become an asset to us. And then all of a sudden that learning that was taking place in the high school became relevant to the student.
Yeah. I'm thinking back to my, taking French and not understanding why that was important, because not that many people speak French, but if someone were to say a plant here in Evansville, you can work with them, and then there's opportunity for you to go over there and take that skill, it would automatically make me feel like I would want to try harder, or just, like you said, kind of motivate that learning. That's really
cool.
I
think you have a vision. A lot of parents or students have a vision in their mind of what a plant looks like inside. Mm. And when we can bring those parents in on an open house sort of a visit, when Toyota takes the students up there, they really get a peek behind the curtain in what manufacturing looks like today. And it isn't what we used to think of manufacturing looking like.
Yeah.
It's very innovative, a lot of computers, and a lot of technology.
So, Annie, banking, you're with banking and finance. Let's talk about your relationship with all of this.
Of course. So as Chief of Staff at Old National to our Chairman and CEO, one of my major roles is to just carry out projects and initiatives that are important to him and important to our organization that might not necessarily sit with somebody else at the company. So one of those was the Youth Apprenticeship Initiative through the state, through Ascend Indiana and iLab. I got the chance to go in February to Switzerland and learn how they do their banking and finance youth apprenticeship program, and have now been working with BJ and Robin on how we can launch that banking youth apprenticeship here in Evansville starting in August 2025, which will be the first banking apprenticeship in the state, along with other banks that are also launching in 2025. But so we're currently working with the Indiana Bankers Association on a curriculum for the students, and like I mentioned, working with EVSC on how we're going to recruit those students and work with their schedules and put them into in the bank starting in August.
That's awesome. So you said that this is the only one in Indiana.
Well, other banks in Indiana are also launching in August 2025. So the Indiana Bankers Association is creating a statewide curriculum that schools and banks can utilize for the apprenticeship program. But the banking youth apprenticeship is new to the state beginning in August.
And they've worked with the IDOE, the Indiana Department of Education, on aligning this curriculum with current high school courses that we have as part of a pathway for the new Indiana diploma.
And I think that's a really important piece there. Like I work for the EVSD, but I also serve on the Indiana State Board of Education. So I'm on the iLab committee as well. I've been through CMETS University, which is the Switzerland training.
Wow.
80% of their students go through an apprenticeship.
That's right.
And that's the goal, obviously, for us, because you can't duplicate what happens in those facilities in a regular classroom. But the IBA, the huge expense for K-12 education is usually the educator and transportation. So the IBA has eliminated both of those for us, and one, creating the curriculum, not only creating the curriculum, but they're also delivering the curriculum at their expense. So it's not a teacher that we have to hire to facilitate this. In our case, it could be 6 different high schools across the state. You're talking hundreds of high schools, and the IBA has taken all of that work on, which will really limit costs to K-12 education, which will allow us to scale this pretty quickly.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. In our reports, we talked about the Modern Youth Apprentice, which is partnering with Deaconess and Ivy Tech. And are there other businesses a part of that as well?
Do you want to jump on? There are. We actually, we were selected. I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself here, but we were one of 3 sites selected to be an accelerator site in the state of Indiana.
Okay.
Which is a testament, one, to Dr. Smith and the board's vision. OptIN came into existence in 2018 to kind of redefine the work that we were doing. And if you look at the new diploma requirements in the state of Indiana, they pretty much mirror those things that we talked about. We want to make sure that the students, if they want to be enrolled, enlisted, or employed right out of high school, we've prepared them and given them the skills to do all of those things, which now that is mimicked with the new diploma requirements. But we figured out very quickly that many hands make light work. And this is not something, if this was the only thing that we had to do, I think maybe we could handle that. But it's not the only work that we conduct for the EVSC, so we had to branch out. We've created a coalition with EREP, the Southwest Indiana Workforce Board, and Ivy Tech. But I also say the University of Southern Indiana is also included in with our Academy of Future Educators. Because one of the things that we talked about this morning, Robin and I talked about, and I'm going to steal this, but it was her line, is that it's almost like a relay. Like before we did your high school graduation requirements, May came, we said, hey, good luck.
Right.
And now it's this blurred handoff between us to higher education and between us to the employers or to us to the armed services, to where it kind of makes that transition easier, because 18-year-olds are nervous. They don't know what life's going to hold for them. It's a nerve-wracking time. So when you can lessen that, I think it will increase the success as those students experience.
It's really important, just to add to that, to have trusted adults around you. And that could be your family, but it also helps if it's people that you trust in school or in your workplace. And so we try to blur that line a bit. Like BJ said, the handoff for a period of time. With our apprentices, we're running alongside Ivy Tech and the business. We all 3 have them. Then at the graduation, we hand it off to post-secondary and the workforce, and they run with the student for a while. And then eventually it's handed off to the workforce. So it's just a little bit more support wrapped around them.
Yeah. How many students are currently involved?
67 in total, and I will say that is probably top 2 or 3 in the state of Indiana. Like that, and that doesn't sound like a huge number, but when you look at like this is a monster to take on. That's why we're so thankful for people like OMB that are willing to take, because so many companies and corporations have policies that say 18-year-old graduates then come and talk to us.
Yeah.
So it requires policy changes on the employer side,
Yeah.
as well as us figuring out scheduling and buses and all of those things. So, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, but it's so valuable.
And
that
Barry and
it's worth it.
Toyota are unique in taking an entire classroom of students. So really what Modern Youth Apprenticeship has evolved into is like a, I don't want to say easier. It's not easier, but if we have some 2 or 3 up to 5, I think is what Old National Bank is committing to for next year, a smaller number of student, that seems more reasonable for, I think, an employer to think, okay, I can do 5 students.
Yeah.
I don't need 30,
Right.
but 5 I can do. So it's a good starting place for us, I think, as businesses are figuring out how to have high school students and what they can do. And I think they will be surprised at the work they can do. One of our first partnerships, not a youth apprenticeship, but having students, it was certainly an innovative partnership, was with AmeriQual and our RAMP program. And AmeriQual's takeaway in those first couple of weeks of that starting and having students work was, wow, they can really do work. They really want to be here. They want to do the work. They're motivated. And that was just unexpected.
That's really cool. So I'm seeing a lot of benefits for students and businesses working really hard, like Old National. So when you were, maybe speak into your time in Switzerland, or what's the payoff for the businesses? Why is it important for them to invest in the kids?
Yeah, well, I mean, to Robin's point, these students are hard workers. They do a good job. They're capable of so much, and they we haven't experienced it at Old National yet, but we saw, in Switzerland, and we've seen it in Barry and Deaconess and other companies like that. But just we're fighting for talent. We're fighting retaining talent in some of our positions, and being able to fill those positions with high school students that are eager to learn and eager to be there is just a huge benefit to the company. And then I'll also add, just from an Evansville perspective, is keeping young talent in Evansville and giving them purpose and helping them grow in this community is huge, and will mean a lot in the long run. So we're so excited for just that.
I think in introducing them to positions they may not know exist.
Yeah.
We see a lot of times students say that what are you interested in, or I'm going to college. What are you going to study? I'm going to study business. What do you want to do with that? And they really don't know. They can't. They just know they haven't thought past, I'm going to go major in business. And I think it's a really good opportunity for a student to get into a bank and see all of the opportunities for a student interested in business. So whether that's morphed into finance yet, that they don't realize that, or they don't know what the opportunities are.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about our rotations, and wealth management's a possibility, retail banking's a possibility, investor relations is a possibility. So there's so much more than just banking. That what to your point, they might think banking is, and introducing them to all those things, and then also just. We've talked to Ivy Tech about just making sure a seamless transition for banking apprentices if they want to continue on to college, and they're very excited about that. So yeah, it gets people excited about banking. I mean, what more can you ask for?
Well, yeah, the kids, they can't be what they don't know is out there. And so I think one of the key things that's standing out to me is the importance of relationships. And you talked about that on your end, but they are also passed off to the businesses, and the educators are working with them and figuring out, like, each kid has something that is valuable, and they have something instilled in them of a passion. But a lot of times I'm thinking my own, high school experience, not knowing I had a lot of passions, but I didn't know how they aligned into a position. And so having someone to say, well, let me listen to you and tell you the opportunities, I think that's really important. What do you think makes, sometimes I feel like a couple of you have said, like, Evansville is unique in this way. or we're the top. What would you say makes Evansville unique?
I'll say one thing we've noticed at being an accelerator site, and we'll go and be at these retreats, or we'll have to go and share back our progress to the state. Things that other sites have issues with or difficulties with, we don't have that problem in Evansville. And the main one is the investment of businesses.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of other areas, they do have difficulty getting to the C-suite level, as they call it, getting that person to return a phone call, wanting to understand why investing in students is important. And in Evansville, that's the part that we have probably more than we can handle sometimes. We have them calling us all of the time, wanting to get involved in this. For every Old National Bank, we have other phone calls we've already had. I have a call later this afternoon with someone. How can I get a student? I'm hearing about this. How can I get a student in our office? Would you agree, BJ? I mean, it's a good problem to have.
And I think our size contributes to that. I think that we're kind of perfect because we are blessed with a lot of great industry, but we're also small enough that there's relationships that exist with those C-suite folks. And so many of the people at those levels in Evansville love this city and want to see it thrive and understand that it takes commitments like this to make sure that we continue to strive.
I have a list of initiatives here that I do not know what they are. And so I'm wondering if you can tell me what they are, because they sound great.
That is another one. I think they partnered with Toyota to create those. And again, that just creates exposure at even a younger age. I feel like, I'm speaking for the EBSC only here, I feel like we have a pretty good handle on exposure and experiences for high school students. But sometimes they've missed opportunities with some of our innovative models because they didn't know that they existed. So if we can get that spark kind of ignited earlier, and that K-8 range, which is what those innovative studios will do, the MMAX created in partnership with Purdue University and Toyota.
And we do have those in our elementary school.
Yes.
And we have a designated person at the EVSC working to integrate curriculum into those and into all areas. So let's say, like with that, the STEM careers, you might start embedding some STEM language in a reading lesson. You might know that it would be maybe in a science or math lesson, but not maybe some terminology in an English lesson for a student. So you're just starting to embed some of that terminology, some of those career options, so they start hearing about it at an earlier age.
Okay. Yeah, my son came home from first grade and was like, I'm learning, STEM and like classes.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Yeah, that's intentional.
Yeah. That's so cool.
Well, and it goes back to that whole you can't be what you can't see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so that's for all students, but I'm going to particularly say like females in STEM. There aren't as many females in STEM. It's been an issue in STEM and in the trades. And so we are starting to embed that at an earlier age before stereotypes exist, preconceived notions exist for females in one career or another, and hoping that research has shown that if we start that early, they start to think, I do see people, of my gender or whatever ethnic diversity even. You can't be what you can't see. So we want to make sure that we incorporate all of that at an early age.
Yeah. And one of our values here is storytelling. And so I would love to hear some stories from you guys of just students that you've had success stories or just walked through and just thought this is inspirational and like just share their story.
Jump in with that.
You want to talk about Maddie?
I'll let you do that one. One of my favorites was year one of Berry Global reached out to us and said, hey, we need forklift drivers. And we said, okay, again, the expense in most of our cases, what the hurdle becomes the instructor. So they said, we'll create the program, we'll create the curriculum, we'll come to your school, we will teach it every week. So they did that, had, I think 7 students the first year and had 50 the second year.
Wow.
So
oh my gosh.
super,
Kids were
super
driving
successful.
forklifts.
Yes.
Well, and I think without that forklift program, there would not be Berry Link today.
Oh, great. Yeah.
But one of the students that came on full time actually found Mary Reese, who was instrumental in all of that, who is again the C-suite and HR there. And he got his check on Friday, and he came to find Mary, and he's like, I've never seen this much money. No one in my family's ever had this much money. And Mary said, if you come back next week, we'll give it to you again. So I feel like that success of the because that student going back and talking about the success that they experienced is more important than anything that we as adults can say. Yeah. So the fact that we create good experiences with great partners who are, this can't be seen as philanthropy. This has to be seen as a talent pipeline because it's important. But 2, you have to make sure that there's a benefit to 1, the student, and 2, the industry partner.
Right.
And when that happens, I think you see lots of success.
And it should be industry driven. When we were first talking about modern youth apprenticeship and where should we start and what should our first apprenticeship look like, we went to a couple of partners, and Deaconess came back to us and said, here are the top 5 hiring needs we have right now. So that gave us a starting point.
Yeah.
So we could look, okay, this is industry saying, this is where we need people.
Yeah.
And we looked at those and we thought, okay, let's look at one. Where are the hurdles and which one can we tackle? And that's why we landed on sterile processing to start.
Because we don't want to try to guess. I mean, we go to the end users, we ask those questions. We don't want to try to guess what the needs in banking are. That's why we have OMB, who's gracious enough to come to the table and not only guess about the job that they want, but the curriculum that's needed. So when the end user is involved in that process, creating those lessons, you talk about that's where that relevancy comes back to. The students understand that this isn't me telling you what I think Old National wants in an employee. This is Old National telling you, hey, this is how you climb the ladder with no ceiling in a major corporation. And that hits home with students.
Yeah, that's well said.
Yeah.
And I also think it's important to add that an apprentice, obviously the goal for the business is to encourage them to stay with their business, but there isn't a contract. There isn't a Berry Link knows they have these students. At the end of that, there isn't an expectation or a requirement that they work for Berry at the end. Of course, Berry is having them in their facility. They're showing them everything that they have to offer. But I think that's the great part of this is Toyota knows these students are in Berry. Berry knows Toyota has 4T, and both of them are okay knowing that they may swap students. Toyota 4T may have a student that's going to go to Berry after high school. Berry may have a Toyota student. They're teaching them transferable skills. And that would go for Old National Bank. They're going to teach them skills that can be transferred to any bank that they might go to.
Right. Well, and I'll just add, the resumes of these kids at 18 years old is just going to set them up for success in the long run. You see more and more companies wanting experience over education even. So just being able to say in banking, for example, that you worked for a bank for 3 years before you're 18 is
that's huge.
It's helpful.
Yeah. That can change a kid's life. I mean, all of these programs sound like they're truly life-changing for students. And one of the stories that we shared in our report is Maddie, but I would like for it to come from you if you would like to share that.
Well, you can fill in parts of it too, because Maddie, she is a student at Wrights, and she was our first youth apprentice. So we were all flying the plane, as it was being built that year, and she had the personality for that and the patience for us to figure this out with her schedule, with Ivy Tech, and with Deaconess was the partner at that point. And it was Deaconess specifically, BJ, right? Because her mom had worked at Deaconess and had been in sterile processing, correct?
Yes.
And so that is why Deaconess was the house. They housed her for her modern youth apprenticeship. And I'll say she's now in year 2. I did text our contact at Deaconess because she's taken her certification exam to become a sterile processor, and we're still waiting on that to come back. But she has been working junior year. She would go to Ivy Tech 3 mornings, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. She would attend classes at Ivy Tech. And then Tuesdays, Thursdays, she would go work at Deaconess in the mornings. And now that she's a senior, every afternoon she goes to Deaconess. And it's not just during school hours. She works, I think, sometimes on weekends, whenever they need her over the summer. And so she is, while she's doing that, her second year, once she passes that certification exam, that opens her up to credits from Ivy Tech as well, because they've aligned that with the youth apprenticeship and the high school credits at the state.
And that was done at no cost to the student. Is it possible to scale that on a high level? I don't know the answer to that. But it's always the goal. We don't want that to be a hurdle. But in a case like this, you have a student who is going to have her certification. Her test was paid for. Her training was paid for. When it comes to our education pathway, those students will have 150 hours. It's the same thing. They take their coursework. We partnered with the University of Southern Indiana. Those students take courses on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Junior years at Wrights High School. Senior year, first semester is courses Monday, Wednesday, Friday at West Terrace Elementary. And then second semester, senior year, they actually go to USI for their coursework. So it's kind of, again, you see that slow handoff, just a little bit more removed from K-12 education.
And you have USI coming to teach at West Terrace. So a real blending of post-secondary coming into the elementary school and teaching in that environment, teaching them those skills.
Yeah.
It seems like such a huge collaborative effort on everybody's part. Like, you guys keep just dropping all of these organizations and businesses and people and teachers, and everyone just it's truly like wraparound care. And it seems like it's coming to life here. And that gives me a lot of hope for our city. I was wondering where you guys see hope and just for the future and excitement.
For me, it's having partners like Old National come to the table. We understand that there are concerns that come with putting 17-year-olds in your facility.
And sometimes 16-year-olds even.
State statute says 16, but we understand that there's issues that come with that. So the conversations that we have is, okay, you have 40 positions in your company. We understand that our students can't do all of them, but let's figure out the ones that they can. And again, you see, I don't know the answer to what ONB spends recruiting talent, but we're bringing that talent to you, and not only bringing that talent to you, but they're going to give you a return. They're going to have an immediate value add by providing work for you while they're here.
Yeah.
And then it also gives you the opportunity to build that relationship you talked about earlier with those students. Because one of the things that we've learned is students are truly, they are loyal. And when someone invests in them, it makes it really hard for someone else to come in and crack that. Like those students, we have 5 students coming next year to OMB. And that experience, we understand that when that experience is amazing, it's going to be hard for someone else to crack another banking industry or partner to come in and say, oh, would you want to come and work for me now? Because their experience was so great during this process.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's word of mouth too. Like you mentioned, the forklift one, it went from 7 to 50 in 1 year. I don't know if Old National will be at that speed, but just getting more, you think, from banking, getting more banks involved, letting the banks in Evansville see all these great apprentices working at Old National, well, then they're going to start coming to the table and say, hey, I'll take some of these. And then the students are sharing their experiences with other students. Hey, I want to do this. They're having a great experience doing this. So, you just think of how much this can grow over the next several years in all industries. 67 could turn into 500.
Well, I can give you a good example of that. With Barry Link, we just did our interviews, Barry interviews for students that go into the Link program. This is, we're getting ready to start our 3rd year next year. So year 1, we had about 35 interview. Year 2, we doubled that last year. This year, I just got the numbers. It was triple.
Wow.
We had 127 students interview for 25 spots.
Oh, wow.
So you can see the word of mouth. We've had some success. We have students talking about the program. And and clearly in a positive way, and encouraging others to, and parents, they've talked and they've realized this is a great opportunity for their son or daughter.
And that innovative partner, like we mentioned AmeriQual earlier, I think it's important to come back to them because they were the very first partner to kind of jump off the cliff with us. There's some proof in the pudding now, and we've seen, hey, these 17-year-olds can produce, and we're now O&B is that same person, that same trailblazer in a different industry.
Yeah.
That we don't know that this is going to work in this industry. We believe that it will, or we wouldn't be doing all of this work. But we, as there becomes these success stories, and I will say that Evansville is used across the state as an example. There people reach out to us to ask about the successes that we've had, and ask if our companies would share that with their local companies to say, hey, we took on 17-year-olds, and that happens because again, there may be a small bank where one student will be as impactful as 5 would be as someone the size of Old National Bank.
Yeah.
So it's all about scaling opportunities not only for our students but also for our community and our industry partners.
Yeah, and being an example to Indiana or even further.
Well, and with the flexibility of this new diploma, I think it's really going to normalize having students in the workplace eventually. The flexibility is there for students to leave their high school to get work-based learning credit. And I think eventually we'll think back and we will remember when students really didn't go out and work and get, an idea for what the world of work is like before they graduated from high school. And that'll be a thing of the past. And
that's what's so great about apprenticeships is the industry partners become a real-time lab. Our Career and Tech Center is amazing, world class. It's a $100 million building that's maxed out as far as the students that it can handle. Wow. So we can't build another one of those,
right?
Because we could build up tomorrow if we could, but Modern Youth Apprenticeship allows us to use a higher ed partner as the curriculum instructor. And then the lab itself truly becomes Old National Bank and Berry Global and AmeriQual and those partners that we have in Deaconess, which allows us to serve more students in the most real life experience that you can possibly have.
I feel like there's just so much behind the scenes that me, just as an average Evansville person, doesn't know that this is going on, and it's so cool. So what can our listeners who are just learning about this for the first time, maybe they want to get involved somehow, what would you have if you had action steps for somebody? What would that look like?
Well, I think businesses listening, is both of you have pointed out already today, is if you have a need and you see a need for apprentices, come to the table, share what you need, and let you two deal with all the school stuff. But let's see what Evansville can do in the apprenticeship space.
That's cool. What about you guys? How can people businesses, can they contact you and just say, hey, I would like to explore this opportunity?
Absolutely. And right now I'm working with a business. I have a call today that they're not quite ready for the apprenticeship, the full robust apprenticeship, but they are interested in starting small and figuring out what it's like to have a student in their workplace. So we're going to talk through what that might look like, how they might get interested students to talk with them, to try one before they get into. They're interested in apprenticeship. This industry in particular is as well, and I think they want to try it out a little bit beforehand. So reach out to us and we can start having some conversations about how that could happen.
Okay.
And I think the important part of that conversation is we're not a job placement agency. That's not our goal. So you have to understand that we are a partner. You're becoming a part of the education process, which is what Old National and the IBA have done. They're truly creating the curriculum themselves, which makes our life easier. But we want to create an experience for the student who they may come through this program and be 2 years in and an investment in and decide that that's not what they want to do. And that has to be okay.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I think we always want partners. our signing day where we recognize, I think of an athletic signing day, where we recognize those students that are entering the workforce directly.
Yeah.
Year one, we had 8 business partners and 31 students. And last year, we had 163 students and over 60 business partners. So we've seen that growth come, and we want to recognize those students for making great decisions. And this isn't me saying this is good enough for your kid, not good enough for mine. I have 2 sons. My oldest son went to IU. My youngest son's in the IBEW. I supported both decisions equally, and that's what we try to share with these students. Is say we don't care what you pick.
Yeah.
We just want to understand what your opportunities are, and the fact that there are corporations here that are major corporations that have no ceiling for you, and we want you to come here and grow and enter that and work to land wherever it is that what do you want to do all day, every day.
That's amazing. Okay, that's time for us. I feel like we could talk about this all day. I want to hear all of your stories, but I would like to wrap it up. But thank you guys so much for being here, for really truly being for Evansville, and especially for Evansville's kids, and just supporting our education. So thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Fred.
Thanks for having us.